This tutorial will focus on another group of pathogens called the prions. These are a relatively recent discovery in human history and are an insidious kind of pathogen, one that is very difficult to detect and causes terribly long and drawn out neurodegenerative diseases. Prions aren't organisms. So although viruses are non-cellular agents, prions fall into that same category of a non-cellular agent. So unlike bacteria and fungi, which are cellular in nature, prions and viruses are not. In fact, prions are just proteins. These are infectious proteins that cause diseases such as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD, or Kuru, or in animals, bovine spongy encephalitis, or better known as mad cow disease, or a similar condition in sheep. Something was first hinted at when initial explorers went to New Guinea and came across a number of cannibalistic tribes that traditionally ate the brains of other people, and discovered a disease that hadn't been heard of before, which was eventually named Kuru, where people showed signs of dementia and degrees of madness, as clearly the brain had degenerated from some kind of infection. But initially nobody knew what the causative agent was. There seemed to be no viruses or bacteria or other obvious pathogens that were causing such diseases. Eventually it was discovered that these diseases, Kuru and Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, etc., mad cow disease, were caused by infectious proteins that were named prions. These prions are written technically as PRPC proteins. And what's interesting is that everybody has these PRPC proteins. They exist as a normal protein within the brain. But what's also intriguing is that there's an infectious form of this protein. These proteins, the normal form of the prion protein, PRPC, as written here, exists in everybody's brains. And it was seen that the structure of the protein is capable of changing when it's influenced by an infectious form of the protein. So the protein can change from the normal version to the infectious version, PRPSC. And this replication seems to occur when PRPC, the normal form of the protein, comes into contact with the infectious form of the protein that may have come into your body via diet, perhaps ingesting meat from sheep or cattle that have been infected with mad cow disease, or it could in some cases be a rare spontaneous change from the normal form to the infectious form. And this in turn causes the normal version of the protein to become the infectious form of the protein. So it's a conversion from PRPC to PRPSC until this accumulates, and then these proteins play a role in damaging brain cells, neurons in the brain, which ultimately leads to the symptoms that we describe as dementia. This is a long, slow process. In this section of the tutorial, I've put a fair bit of text that may be useful to pause the tutorial and just take some time to read through it, which is a bit of background on prions and the nature of the prion infection. It refers to a diagram that you can move forward to and have a look as you read through the tutorial. To finish this brief tutorial on prion diseases, let's just remember that generally all the diseases that seem to be linked to prions are the infectious form of the prions, such as Kuru, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, mad cow disease, or bovine spongiform encephalitis, or scrapie in sheep, are all referred to as TSEs, which are transmissible, spongiform, meaning that the brain tissue begins to look like a sponge, encephalopathies. encephalopathy. Transmissible spongiform encephalopathies. This is related to brain. Spongiform refers to its appearance. Transmissible means it can be passed on. So you can see just quickly here that brain shrinkage and deterioration occur rapidly in TSC infection. A brain section, tissue showing the beginnings of the spongy appearance in the brain where brain cells have died or neurons have died, leaving gaps in the brain. Just a reminder that much of the origin of the human infection often is transmitted from cows and sheep via the food chains.